What is the best Elden Ring PvP weapon? Hello everyone! I'm lost, and if you ask me, which of course you did by clicking on this video, I'm unfortunately going to have to tell you that the answer to that depends. Are you in an invasion, or are you in a duel? A duel might seem pretty straightforward, but there are certain weapons that are better at fighting other weapons. It's not a pure rock, scissor, tinfoil system, but that's something to keep in mind. Now, if you are in an invasion, suddenly there's tons of different variables that you have to keep in mind. One of them are how many people you're fighting. Okay, are there two sword dudes? One sword dude and one mage and another mage? One mage and an archer? There's always a mage. And what about the terrain? Are you fighting in a beautiful field, or are you dancing precariously on a cliffside? So the answer is a bit complicated. Luckily for us, Only Waifu just made a tier list, and while I generally do not react to videos, I did get permission from Only Waifu because he was very curious about what my audience would say about his video. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's just dive straight into it.
I know many of you have been bugging us for a tier list since we did our Rage Gaming video.
I bugged him.
We haven't really gotten to it because we felt there were more interesting topics to talk about. But seeing how many requests we've gotten since our last two videos that covered tier...
He is very outspoken, so if he's gonna talk shit about other people, you better bring it.
lists. And after losing our faith in humanity with the Gorgonites we found in Seamless Co-op, I believe it's due time we give our real 2 cents on the matter so people can finally put that rivers of blood away and invest in less repulsive equipment.
Yes, put away Rivers of Blood and add to your arsenal Rivers of Blood 2.0.
First of all, we are going to put on the list the 10 best weapons in the game for invasions and duels. We're not going...
Yeah, that's very important. As I said in the intro, depending on the situation, you will have to choose different weapons.
...to rank all the weapons in the game because that's completely pointless. Like,
why not? You could have done that and given me a video that lasts for an hour. That's great for AdSense.
Seriously, some weapons are literally the same thing, but a tiny bit different, like the Knight's Great Sword and the Banished Knight Great Sword. The only difference between these two is just a little bit of damage and range.
And the Knight Great Sword looks so much better.
Individually, with only one exception, which is going to be analysed as a set. We're going to take into account the weapon's moveset, the weapon's damage capability, and its versatility in different combat situations for a player of higher than average skill. The idea is that the weapons are compared when players of similar or equal skill level fight each other with these weapons, as judging it for different levels of skill won't make much sense. Think of it this way. If you, using a D tier weapon, had to fight yourself using an A tier weapon, the version of you using the A tier
there wouldn't be much fighting, there would be a lot of kissing instead.
Weapon would most likely win. In this case, the tiers we're going to work with are A tier, S tier, double S tier, and triple S tier, because all the weapons are great.
I think that she should have added a feat tier. I do not know if I should be ashamed or impressed by the Elden Ring's community obsession with feet. But who am I to judge? Because I'm right there with you. So today, we will be ranking 62 feet in Elden Ring. Feet tier would be perfect.
Explain this, and without further ado, let's jump right into the damn thing.
The first one in the list is the exception that the blue smurf mentioned before, the fingerprint stone shield, also known as the shield named Finger. Finger is a little bit lacking if you use it by itself, as it is very slow.
I was about to say, it can be incredibly powerful, but mostly that has been as a meme. I do remember when the game first came out though, and people used to have this infused with blood. They would bleed and madness people till the end of time. It was frightening. And especially in an invasion situation, if you have one guy pelting you with magic and another guy coming at you with the shield, Oh Nelly, it was scary.
Telegraphed and lacks any respectable range. However, if you use it as a shield, though, it becomes much more interesting.
Duh.
With the second highest guard boost in the game, Finger can be very good for passive-type turtling playstyles, if used correctly. Weapons like thrusting swords and heavy thrusting swords can be used for shield poking at the correct moments to basically negate many playstyles.
Makes sense.
Guard counter builds using daggers like the Cincadea can be quite effective in low latency against slower weapons. Its advantage over the Verdigris shield, which has the highest guard boost, is that it can be infused with different Ashes of War for more versatility on top of its madness build-up. Hell, if you infuse it with bleed, it will have both bleed and madness.
Okay, let's just go back a second because look at that.
With bleed,
Look at how crazy that gets. Oh my god.
Bleed and madness, on top of an arcane scaling that will increase the build-ups of said status effects. Finger performs quite well in duels, despite being countered by Starfists with the Hammer Talisman. But it's not so great in invasions. A turtling playstyle simply cannot function too well in a scenario with multiple enemies, even if said enemies lack brain activity. And the fact that shield poking...
I don't know about that. I suppose they did say earlier on that every single one of these weapons are great. So if this is the worst one of the greatest ones, I shouldn't be complaining too much. Yeah, I'll give them that.
Severely penalizes your stamina, getting guard broken when fighting a gank is pretty much guaranteed. It's a bit hard to master. The damage output of the playstyle is good, but not great, and the only scenario where it...
Yeah, playing with a shield, especially one where you focus on shield pokes, is a different experience. A shield poke can be very useful, but just running up against somebody and start monkey mashing the button while hiding behind the shield is going to lead to your eventual death. You have to be clever with it. You have to use the shield in ways they don't expect. Shield bash is a wonderful example of that.
Shines greatly as in duels. Despite that, it's the best of its class and a very solid setup for dueling. For invasions, it would be A tier. And for duels, it would be double S tier. On to the next one.
Yeah.
The Banished Knight Halberd is, by far, the best halberd in Elden Ring. It possesses the good halberd moveset, the one with where it pokes your pee-pee instead of bonking your head. Amazing damage with strength.
It is so amazing how a simple switch from one move to another can really boost a weapon. The pokes are always superior in these situations.
Builds, and it's the 5th longest halberd in the game. The reason it stands over Commander's Standard, which is basically BKH but longer and stronger, is because it can be infused with Ashes of War. Commander's Standard basically has no combat Ash of War, and this can be very detrimental when considering that ashes like Flaming Strike have amazing synergy with the weapon class.
And Ashes of War like that are super important for invasions. It's one thing to use it in a duel, but it's important to have something to yell, "Get off me!" when the crazy PvEers just come running down and try to just overwhelm you with their numbers. So you can use their aggression, their stupid aggression against them. But you have to have an Ash of War that does that if your weapon is kind of sort of lacking in certain areas.
The running light attack is so amazingly strong that it can easily be considered the best running attack in the game, as it synergizes perfectly with 3 of the best talismans in the game, and it's great for chase downs and...
Is it? Is it the best one? I mean, the Carrion Shield, or the Dueling Shield, has a fantastic running attack, and of course the heavy thrusting swords, all that did get a little nerfed if I remember correctly. Still, I can't really argue or say anything bad about that, so yeah, alright.
Finishing up opponents on both low and high latency. The weapon also offers hyper armor on 2-handed attacks, which is great to fight silly mashers in both invasions and duels.
Which is very important.
How could I lose? I mashed as hard as I could.
The weapon plays exactly the same on both combat scenarios, obviously having bigger trouble against multiple targets. It's relatively simple to use, and dealing big damage with a few good running attacks is...
In a invasion situation, it's very good to have a attack that goes horizontal, so that you can catch as many opponents as possible. And it's a good way of showing people that, hey, you shouldn't mess with me. Still, if you do enough damage, and you can get a lot of damage with this beautiful weapon, it is very scary, which is what you need.
Simpler than it looks. The downsides would be that it's a somewhat slow weapon that can be easily strafed by good players. Reason why it performs best when paired with a hand axe. Taking all of this into account, the Banished Knight Halberd ends up in A tier for both duels and invasions. Solid, but not the best of the bunch.
I'd probably put it a little higher even, because of its damage potential. I would probably put it in an S tier, but that's just one tiny movement. Nothing too crazy.
The favorite of many from soft fans out there, Nuts from Burke's sword is one of the best weapons in the game for both duels and invasions.
What are you doing, you idiot?
And despite what some uninformed goobers may think, it's not because of Lion's Claw.
Yeah, please use something else.
Dude, what the fuck?
Being one of the longest colossal swords in the game and boasting absolutely bonkers damage when infused with strength, Nuts' sword is a fantastic tool for
1,000.
trading into nearly anything and come out on top thanks to its absurdly high hyper armor and poise damage values. Its wide-range light attacks cover a huge 180.
That's how I like to play. It's interesting because I love the look of long, thin blades, but I'm not a big fan of playing with the S-Stock. I'm really not. I love poise builds, and the Greatsword has that in spades. I just don't like the way it looks. I don't want to be a hulking brute. I'm like the smooth ninja, the rogue.
80 degrees range in front of you, making it easy to hit multiple people in invasions.
Yeah.
While the crouch poke attack is super good for high damage trades.
That's what
and
we talked about
roll-catching
earlier.
Panicky goobers. It benefits from both the two-handed sword talisman and the spear talisman, increasing damage numbers even further on crouch pokes.
Bye-bye.
And can use waves of darkness, which is probably the best Ash of War in the game for invasions. The weapon's only downside lies in the fact
Are we memeing right now? Yeah, we're memeing. That's fun, though.
that it's very slow to attack, so good players will dodge most hits on reaction. This also makes it not so great in scenarios when you have to finish up your opponent, as they can easily outrun you. Regardless, it's a very easy to use weapon, pretty solid in both invasions and duels. Solid 18.
And something that they aren't really taking into account here, which I understand why, but if you have an extra weapon on you, you can easily switch to that to finish off somebody who's running away. That's super important for invasions, generally, to have something to finish off opponents, but I understand that they don't put that in the list, because then it would be super complicated.
Tier for both categories.
This weapon has the sexiest curves you'll ever see, but
Yep.
don't let its beauty fool you. It will absolutely turn you into its bitch if you let it.
Oh,
My God.
yeah, no, we saw the name
Shamshir
there.
is different from the rest of the curved sword.
I just want to give shout out to whether that is only waifu or if that was, I don't know where that footage came from, but good on you for fucking that guy up.
in Elden Ring, as it has a very unique moveset with awesome forward momentum and broad swings. These swings are incredibly fast, so fast that some people may eat 2 hits in a row before being able to roll away. All of the Shamshir's attacks are great for spacing and chasing people, becoming only stronger with the correct setup. The two-handed sword.
It's a beautiful weapon, and I think it's a weapon that requires a highly skilled player, because in the hands of a less than accomplished Elden Ring PvPer, it's gonna look bad. But if you are very good at the game, yeah, that weapon's gonna look amazing.
Sword talisman, of course, and the rotten-winged sword insignia for its consecutive attacks. Not only is it capable of quick, insane damage, but it's also a roll-catching machine thanks to its perfect moveset. The weapon just feels so smooth to use that you'll find yourself very comfortable in most combat scenarios. Sadly, even though it doesn't have any glaring weaknesses, it's a bit lower on the list, only because the weapons that follow it are simply better at everything the Shamshir does.
Also, it's a weapon that has no poise, unfortunately. Well, I guess it has a little bit, but generally you don't want to trade with it. And that's something that I think is important to take into account. If I were to make this list, I would also add another tier list underneath both of the ones that we're actually talking about for lower skilled players, because their trading would be more important. Well, I say I would do that if I had the time and if I wanted to, which I don't at the moment.
As for invasions, it's a solid A tier, and for duels, it can be regarded as S tier.
Yeah.
This weapon needs no introduction, as we have thoroughly discussed its
The Rexasha. I love the Rexasha. If you were telling me that I had to fight someone, but you didn't tell me who it was, you didn't tell me what their weapon was, you didn't tell me where I was fighting, I think I would grab the Rexasha. It's just super versatile with its Ash of War, especially now that they sped it up a little bit, which means that it absolutely roll catches. It has an incredible cool moveset, and it has one-handed poise, so it is very compatible with a ton of different weapons. The Rexasha, in my opinion, is just such a great weapon, and I love it.
cancerous nature in our previous video. But in case you missed it, Rakshasa's Great Katana is the only Great Katana in Elden Ring that possesses hyper armor, boasting also a special heavy attack moveset different to that of other Great Katanas. All of its attacks have incredible range and speed.
Yeah.
It's very good for trading.
Look at that.
It's very good for roll catching. And landing a few hits on anyone will most likely guarantee a kill. It can keep priority against most builds due to having high stun on all of its attacks. It can tank up to colossal swords with its unique Ash of War, and the weapon's supposed defense debuff hardly makes up for how strong the weapon is thanks to its innate hyper armor, damage potential, and bleed buildup. However, despite being insanely good and easy to use, Rakshasa's Great Katana gets heavily countered by great shields such as Fingerprint. If that's not on the menu, then yes. This weapon is very good for both duels and invasions, being a solid S tier in both.
I would definitely bump this up to double S. Absolutely. The whole thing about it being countered, I don't know if that is that big of a deal if you have the ability to kick. Just switch to no weapons on your hands, do a kick, and then boom, you're back in business. But really good players might see that coming, so if you mess up the first time, you might not get that opportunity to do that again. Still, though, I do think I would bump this up to double S. In fact, I might even have it on triple S, me personally.
Both categories.
Another shield enters the list of the best weapons in Elden Ring, although this one is
The Carrion Thrusting Shield. This thing, when it was released, was so broken because it has a shield poke. I know, all of its attacks are technically shield pokes, but you could defend an attack at the same time, and when you were doing that, you didn't take any stamina damage, so you could just go to town while people were attacking you. And you can still go to town while people are attacking you. And this weapon has such a underrated moveset, especially the running attacks. The running heavy might not be as good, even though it's funny and cool, but the standard running attack, oh my god, it is beautiful.
used as a weapon rather than a blocking tool.
Yeah.
The Carrion Thrusting Shield could easily be the best dueling weapon in Elden Ring, if not for a tiny little thing that we'll discuss further into the video. This weapon is a thrusting shield.
No shit!
A new category added in the DLC. And if you recall our last video talking about them, you may remember that they were absolutely fucking broken before the patch.
Look at that.
Thrusting shields are a shadow of their former selves, but the Carrion Thrusting Shield is still a monster, boasting slightly higher guard boost than the dueling shield. The Carrion Thrusting Shield can both block and defend at the same time, with a slight stamina penalty each time a hit is blocked while attacking. It may seem like a very big con, but when managed properly, the weapon is absolutely asinine to deal with. No weapon in the game can even come close to challenging the ridiculous
no weapon has been raged about in my chat more than this weapon. If you take out of consideration the Moonveil, the Rivers of Blood, and also the weapon that you get from defeating a Rykard, I suppose, and also all of the heavy... You know what? I take it back. But still, people complain a lot.
Defensive and offensive capabilities of the Carrion Thrusting Shield. Not only does it have this annoying quirk, but also can deal vomitive levels of damage when combined with the two-handed sword talisman.
Yeah, that's a
and
must.
The spear talisman.
That's a
Furthermore,
must.
its guarding capabilities can be increased.
If you're not
with the
using
Great
that,
Shield
you're using it
talisman,
wrong.
making the battle even more obnoxious for your opponent. In Invasions, though, it is not a bad weapon per se, but it definitely doesn't shine as bright. The
True.
fact that you can be attacked from multiple angles at the same time severely reduces your defensive capabilities. Plus, multiple blocks while attacking will most likely result in a guard break.
It will break
Despite
you,
that,
yeah.
it's still piss easy to use and can deal with most weapons in the game with ease. For duels, this is the second best weapon in the game.
Yeah.
Earning a triple S tier.
I
For
would agree.
Invasions, it's another S tier weapon.
I would agree.
You most likely love this weapon already because it means foot in Spanish. And we all know that as a FromSoft fan, you just love that shit. Pata was
We do,
introduced
we
in the
do.
shadow
I
of
would suck on feet the entire night if my wife allowed me.
No! God, please, no!
the Erdtree DLC and already got its dedicated video showcasing how busted it is. In case you didn't know, Pata is a fist-type weapon. Usually, fist-type weapons have this much range. On the other hand, Pata has this much range.
That's
I
a
think
lot
you're
of
starting to see the
range.
point, right? Not only this weapon has the speed of fists and the range of some fucking spears, making it possibly the best chasing weapon in the game, it also has the capability of dealing a buttload of damage thanks to its bugged DLC damage parameters. To add insult to injury, the running heavy attack can combo into a standing heavy attack, a feature
is
that was
disgusting.
previously patched on the rest of the fist weapons in the game. It is so easy to use and so damn oppressive that for some gamers,
I
this
wonder
weapon
if they
is
will get another
borderline
nerf on
cheating.
that.
It has a similar performance in both duels and invasions, as it can deal with both experienced and new players all together with the same ease. A solid S tier in both categories.
I agree with that.
The Toothpick of Doom has kept its status as one of the most cowabunga weapons in the game since launch, and
So thrusting swords. For duels, these things are pretty insane. Absolutely. And even for invasions, they can be pretty good if you just learn how to utilize it properly. You know, you want to be a little bit more of a hit and run and pick your targets more carefully when you're in an invasion rather than a duel, because you don't want to get hit while hitting somebody else. Still, with the amount of damage that you can get from all of the different talismans, this one goes real damn hard. And in fact, I made a video on this a little while ago where God, I forgot what it really did, but I promise you it was a really good build!
it's still to this day incredibly asinine to deal with. Clean Rot Nightsword is the and it's still to
Okay,
this day
I just want to say
incredibly
that guy's name, something Wong. That's pretty good.
asinine to deal with. Clean Rot Nightsword is the longest and most damaging thrusting sword in the game, a weapon category infamous for its quick piercing attacks and high synergy with most damage enhancing tools in the game.
Yeah.
The weapon is so goddamn fast that it can maul even the sanest and most calm of players into a hairless mess.
what
If
happened
used in
to that
conjunction
guy?
with Bloodhound Step, we're looking at the fastest attack in the game with the lowest recovery, meaning that this weapon can completely bully slow weapons and can match faster weapons with the same ease. It's also ridiculously easy to use, as most times simply mashing R1 or fishing for crouch pokes with Bloodhound Step is enough to get the job done, as that's all that's needed. Including the rest of its arsenal only further increases the skill ceiling and capabilities of the weapon, making it a fearsome tumor in most combat scenarios.
Yeah, another really high-skilled weapon. If you are a newbie, you'll probably just run in and start spamming, which isn't going to end well for you, especially if the opponent has a really big, strong weapon. But in the hands of an experienced person, this can do shit tons of damage.
For invasions, the weapon is the best of the S tier ones, and for duels, it's in double S tier, up there with the
Yeah.
finger shield.
Yeah, no, those I agree with.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. The balls are insane! Stuff
Oh, God damn it, I told her not to tell everybody! I guess you now know, but I have really great balls.
Fist is a fist-type weapon with the unique property of being able to beat the living shit out of anyone if used properly. What lacks in range makes up for more than enough, with its insanely strong damage potential. The heavy attack of the Star Fist can deal bollocks amounts of damage to people with heavy armor, let alone gamers that are not fully optimized on its defenses, and will always stun gamers, regardless of how much poise they have. Hyper armor weapons can be dealt with using Endure and trading to your heart's content as you watch their health bars melt into a yellow fucky mess. They do require some spacing and critical thinking when using them, as simply mashing like a dummy won't get you the win sometimes.
And poor Lava Piss here, he's not even using the Star Fists. He's using the clean balls, the smooth balls, the shaven balls. You know what I'm talking about here. It's so weird that you have those two weapons that are so similar, but one is just worse. Give it at least a little bit more stance damage or something. I know that it weighs less, about, I think it's like half a unit less of weight, and that's basically nothing. So why it exists like that, I have no idea.
But with a little bit of practice, you will start to see how strong they are. They can even counter shield users easily because they can deal very good stamina damage, allowing for easy guard breaks. They're pretty good for chases, as well as both running attacks have very good forward momentum, speed and damage. And eventually, the bleed build-up may
That's also something that most of these weapons really have in common. They have a sense of forward momentum. They have something that can chase down your opponents
and cause some serious injuries. They are a fantastic weapon in both categories, earning a well-deserved place in double S tier for invasions and triple S tier for duels.
I agree. And you know what? For PvE as well, these things are just insane. These are the weapons that I used to defeat bosses with in the DLC and in the base game. And they are just crazy. Just run up to the bosses and charge those heavy attacks. They come out so goddamn quickly that the boss's health bar, it will melt. Just like the regular player's health bar. Now, backhand blades. If you played PvP a little bit, I don't think this is going to come as a huge surprise to anyone.
Did you ever as a kid grab 2 sticks with a reverse grip and pretend to be a badass ninja or something?
Nope.
Well, you can now relive that experience in the game with the backhand blades. This is currently the most broken weapon for PvP in the game for many reasons. Its overall moveset is insanely fast, with huge forward momentum on most attacks. The crouch attack has the same quick attack animation as daggers, but with the damage of fucking great spears.
Oh, look at that. This was an idea somebody had, and it is terrible. The running attack of this thing keeps the momentum going. It's the only weapon in the game that does that, which is crazy good. And you can combine that with the running heavy attack talisman. No, not the running heavy attack talisman. The dashing attack talisman and the armor of Leda, which will make these do even more damage. Hell, I made a build specifically for running attacks, which was crazy good with these weapons.
Attack hits 4 times and is capable of completely obliterating people with the right setup. It has infinite...
Also, let's not forget about the most asshole-ish, that's right, Ash of War ever, which was, God, I don't remember it, but you know. He goes forward and swoosh, and then there's a wind behind him that cuts. It was terrible.
Chase potential thanks to its unique and weird running light attack, and it can beat the carrion thrusting shield with the backhand blade's exclusive Ash of War called Blind Spot, as it can both dodge its attacks and bypass its defensive capabilities. They require quite a bit of practice to master, but once you learn how to tighten that reverse grip on those 2 long and girthy handles, it is pretty much Jover for most weapon categories. By far the best weapon in Elden Ring, being double S tier for invasions and triple S tier for duels. And with that, the list is complete. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Remember that these weapons were judged when used by someone with higher than average...
Is there any weapons now that I am lacking here? I think that we should take into consideration the Claws of Night those are really, really good. I know people think that it's mostly, oh, hey, here's a Asher War spam weapon, but no, it's still fantastic. And it also throws its weapons, which is really neat. I also really like the Smith script Zerks, which are basically the backhand blades, but now it throws the weapon instead of just attacking, standard. Which I think absolutely the Smith script Zerk weapons should be up there. Still, I mean, you could argue that the backhand blades takes that spot. Whatever. Still solid list.
Skill at the game, as some of these weapons may be difficult to use for a gamer that doesn't really know what they're doing, which is ironically 90% of the player base. It makes no sense to judge something based on the performance of a player that can't use the weapon to its full potential. So if you're going to discuss the list, please try to do it within the established criteria. It doesn't matter if your little cousin wins every duel against their little friends by using flails. It is not.
I will have you know that Greg is pretty damn good. So listen to what Greg says.
Not relevant to the
Don't actually talk to Greg though. He's very young, and we don't need you talking to Greg.
Conversation.
But you know what's really relevant to the conversation? Mystery thingy.
Ooh, mystery
that was
thingy.
a long video. Time to relax a bit, little Zweihander. The mystery thingy of our last video was the how do you pronounce this? Oh yeah, Smith script Zerk.
Yeah, there you go.
Big congrats to the little porcelain cups who answered correctly. Here's the new mystery thingy of today.
Right. Attack, guard, physical. A little bit in everything there. Its crit is 110. I'm gonna say that I don't know.